Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Some people are lessons. Some people are warnings. This chick's both. Today in the rLounge, some people really do get exactly what they've earned. Slow, messy, unavoidable, and entirely of their own making. My best friend used to help me. 2 years later, she needed bail money. I declined. I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. My relationship was falling apart, and I found out why on a Wednesday night. I was going through my partner's phone. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but I had reasons to be suspicious, and I was right. And I found months of messages between her and someone else. Not just flirty stuff, deep conversations, inside jokes, the kind of connection that should have been between us. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even deny it. She just said she didn't know what she wanted anymore, and that we needed space to figure things out. I couldn't be in that apartment. I couldn't sit across from her at breakfast or pretend to sleep next to her at night. I needed to get out, and I needed it that night. So I did what anyone would do. I called the person I'd known since college, the person I'd considered family, the person who I'd been there for more times than I could count. I texted her asking if I could stay at her place for a week or two while I figured out my next move. I explained that my relationship was in crisis mode, and I just needed a place to crash and clear my head. I was being honest about it. I wasn't asking for much. I wasn't asking her to fix anything or solve my problems. Just a bed and some space. She responded hours later. "Hey, I'm dealing with my own stuff right now and can't really have anyone staying over. I need my privacy and space." That was it. No follow-up question about what happened. No offer to grab coffee or get dinner so we could talk about it. Just a hard no with a vague excuse about what she was dealing with. I tried one more time. I sent her a message asking if we could at least meet up the next day so I could vent and process what was happening. She left it on red. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear a few times, then nothing. I checked her social media while I was waiting for a response. She'd posted a story 30 minutes before her text to me. A photo of her lunch at some restaurant, looking completely fine. Then another story showing her with friends later that evening. She was out. She was available. She just wasn't available for me. After the second ignored message, I stopped trying. There was no point. I got a hotel room that night and spent the week there going over everything that had happened in my relationship. I called my sister and talked to her about it instead. She listened. She didn't help with the answers, but at least she showed up when it mattered. My relationship didn't recover. We tried to go to therapy, but it was too far gone. The damage was done. After a few weeks of awkward conversation and uncomfortable silences, we both agreed it was over. It wasn't a sudden decision. It was more of a slow recognition that we'd already checked out. But here's the thing. By the time we actually broke up, I'd already moved past the actual phase of the crisis. I'd had time to process it. I'd already figured out some of my next steps. If I had had her support during the first week when everything was chaos, maybe things would have felt different. Maybe I would have felt less alone in the middle of one of the worst weeks of my life. But she decided that wasn't her problem. Over the next few months, I rebuilt. I got back into the gym. I reconnected with some of old friends. I picked up hobbies I'd neglected. I went to therapy, actually. I worked through the breakup and came out in a better mental space than I thought I would. I was genuinely fine. She, meanwhile, kept posting on social media like nothing had happened. Photos of nights out, captions about how grateful she was for her friends. One post in particular said something like, "Grateful for the real ones who stick around no matter what." I saw that and I actually laughed. I screenshotted it, but didn't do anything with it. What was the point? I'd already moved on. Fast forward several months and I ran into her at a coffee shop. It was awkward the moment I saw her, but I was polite about it. She approached me with a smile that looked forced, made small talk about what I'd been up to, and I tried to keep the conversation going. I could tell she noticed I was different with her. Not rude, just cold, distant. She kept trying to restart the conversation, but I wasn't interested in giving her much to work with. After a couple of minutes of that, we parted ways. A few days later, she sent me a message saying she'd seen me at the coffee shop and that it would be cool to catch up sometime because she missed me. I didn't respond for several days. When I finally did, I just wrote back, "Yeah, maybe sometime," and left it at that. I wasn't interested in rehashing anything or pretending we hadn't gone through what we went through. That was the last real communication between us for a long time. She didn't push it. I didn't reach out. We were just two people who used to be close but had moved on to different parts of our lives. At least that's what I thought was happening. I was generally fine without her in my life. I had other friends who were actually there when I needed them. I had hobbies and work and a routine that didn't include processing betrayal or resentment. I'd accepted that some people just aren't built to show up for each other, and instead of letting that poison my outlook on friendship, I just accepted it and moved forward. Life continued. I got into a good rhythm. I was dating again. Nothing serious, just getting back out there. I was sleeping better. I wasn't replaying that first week over and over in my head anymore. The acute pain that faded into just a general acknowledgement that she wasn't the person I thought she was, and that was fine. People aren't always who they think they are. Then everything changed. I got a phone call one afternoon. The number wasn't in my contacts, but I recognized the voice immediately. It was her. And she was panicked. Like, actually panicked. Her voice was shaking and she was talking fast, explaining that she'd been arrested. There had been an incident at a party. She said it wasn't her fault, but she was being charged with assault. She needed bail money and she needed it immediately. She was calling everyone she knew. She asked me for $8,000. Specifically $8,000. Like she'd already done the math on who was worth how much and figured out what she needed from each person. She explained that her family was complicated and she didn't want to go to them. Her other friends were either broke or out of the country. She was literally begging me to help her, saying that she had no one else to turn to, that she was scared, that this charge could ruin her future. I didn't agree on the call. I told her I needed to think about it, and I hung up. Immediately after, she started texting me. Please, 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 I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. Multiple messages in a row. I didn't respond right away because I needed to actually think about this. And by think, I mean I needed to find out what really happened. I wasn't going to just hand over $8,000 based on her side of the story. I'm not naive. So I did what I had to do. I reached out to someone who was at the party. Not in a dramatic way. I just texted someone I knew in that circle and asked casually if they knew what went down. They were happy to fill me in. Turns out her version of events was missing some pretty important details. According to the person who was there, she got aggressive with someone over a relationship situation. The other person was dating someone she had feelings for, and when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, she lost it. She threw a drink at that person, started yelling, and when the person tried to walk away from her, she got physical with them. Not a light shove either. Multiple people saw it. Someone called the cops. So she wasn't an innocent victim of circumstance. She did the things she was being accused of. That night, she called again. I answered this time because I wanted to see if she would tell me the truth or if she'd stick with the sanitized version. She went into detail about how scared she was, how the charge was going to ruin her life, how she was begging me to help her. I let her talk for a bit, then I asked her a direct question. Do you remember March 2 years ago? There was a silence on the line. I continued, I called you. I was going through one of the worst weeks of my life. I asked for help. You didn't even try. You dodged me completely. You were out doing stuff the same night you told me you couldn't have anyone at your place. She tried to brush past it. She said that was 2 years ago and didn't matter right now. She claimed she'd been going through something back then too, but she never actually said what it was. She was trying to make me feel guilty for bringing it up. Like I was being cruel by reminding her of the past when she needed help in the present. I told her exactly what I was thinking. No, I'm not doing this. I'm not your bank. Call your family. Figure something out. I'm not helping you. Then I hung up. What happened after that was predictable. She flooded my phone. Texts, calls, more texts. She went from pleading to angry pretty fast. She accused me of being a bad friend, of being selfish, of holding a grudge over something that happened years ago. She sent me messages like, I guess when I needed you, you were fine with me, but now you're cutting me off. That one actually made me angry, because she had it completely backwards. She'd already made the choice to cut me off when she needed me. I was just returning the favor. She started bringing up past things she'd done for me, trying to weaponize our history. She was listing favors from years ago like they were debts I owed her. Apparently the way friendship works in her mind is that you can accumulate credit from past kindness and can cash it in whenever you need something, even if you've already refused to show up when the other person actually needed you. The next morning, she found another way to reach me. Email. She sent me multiple emails going through the same cycle. Pleading mixed with anger. I can't believe you're like this, and some friend you turned out to be. I forwarded the emails to trash. I wasn't going to respond, and I wasn't going to justify my decision to someone who was only contacting me because she needed something from me. I didn't respond to them. I didn't owe them an explanation, and I certainly wasn't going to sit around and debate my moral character with someone who didn't know what had actually happened between us. A few days into all of this, I found out through someone in a different circle that she'd managed to get bail money from someone else. Apparently, family had stepped in after all, despite her claims of having complicated relationships with them. She was out. The immediate crisis was over, which meant she had other options the entire time. She called me because she thought I was the easiest target, someone with history who might feel obligated to help her, someone who she could appeal to, based on what we used to be to each other. I was plan A, not because I was the only person who could help, but because she calculated that I had the best chance of saying yes. That's when I really understood how little she actually knew about me, or how little she cared about the friendship we had. Because if she'd actually known me, she would have known that I don't respond well to being taken for granted. And if she'd actually valued the friendship, she would have shown up for me when I needed her 2 years ago. I went back to my routine. I went to the gym, I hung out with people who actually showed up for me. I did my work. I lived my life. She was a ghost now, someone who used to matter and then didn't anymore. The difference was that this time, she was the one who decided that. She called me asking for money when she was desperate. I said no, and that was the end of it. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't lose sleep over it. I didn't second guess my decision. I knew exactly why I'd made it, and I stood by it completely. Some people aren't worth the investment. Some people show you who they are by their actions, not their words. And sometimes the best decision you can make is to accept that and let them deal with the consequences of their own choices. That's where things stood. She was dealing with her legal situation. I was dealing with my life. We were separate, and that's how it was going to stay. Update 2. It's been several months since the conviction came through, and things have gotten a little clearer about what's actually happening in her life. I didn't seek this information out, but it's the kind of stuff that filters back to you when you're in overlapping social circles. People talk, news travels, and the picture that's emerged is pretty bleak for her. I'm going to walk through what actually went down because it's relevant to understanding how completely her life has shifted since that phone call asking for bail money. The conviction itself was more serious than I initially realized. It wasn't just a minor assault charge that could be smoothed over or explained away. The judge took it seriously because of the circumstances. She'd been aggressive with someone over a relationship issue that didn't even involve her. She'd escalated the situation when she could have walked away, and she tried to minimize what happened when she was initially questioned by police. The prosecutor presented all of that to the court, and the judge wasn't sympathetic. When the sentence came down, it included probation and community service. Nothing catastrophic, but significant enough that it was going to affect her life for the next couple of years. More importantly, the conviction itself was the kind of thing that stays on your record and shows up every time someone runs a background check on you. I found out about the employment consequences pretty quickly after that. The job opportunity I'd heard about initially wasn't the only one that fell through. She apparently went through a stretch where she was applying for positions and getting rejected consistently. Some of the rejections were probably for normal reasons. She wasn't qualified, someone else was a better fit, the position got filled. But when you have a conviction showing up on a background check, employers notice, and most of them aren't interested in hiring someone with an assault conviction unless they absolutely have to. She ended up stuck in her current position. From what I gathered through the grapevine, she'd been looking for something better for a while, and the assault conviction essentially closed the door on that. She was going to have to stay where she was, dealing with a workplace environment that had already shifted after the arrest became common knowledge. The social fallout was probably worse than the professional stuff, if I'm being honest. She'd lost most of her social circle. The people she used to go out with weren't reaching out anymore. The friends who'd been sympathetic during the immediate aftermath had drifted away. She was left with a very small circle of people, and I heard that she wasn't doing a lot of socializing beyond that. A couple of times over the following months, I'd heard about her trying to make plans with people from her old friends group, and to getting excuses or just being ignored. One time, someone told me that she'd showed up at an event that she heard some of her former friends were going to be at. She apparently spent an hour there and then left early, awkward and uncomfortable. People were polite but distant. No one was interested in catching up. She was a reminder of something people didn't want to think about, that their friend had assaulted someone and was now dealing with the legal consequences. What actually got interesting was when someone who worked in a field adjacent to hers told me that there had been some complications with her trying to relocate. Apparently, she'd applied for a position in another state, and the background check had flagged the conviction. The company had done some research into what had happened, and once they understood the circumstances, they decided to pass on her. Not just to give the position to someone else, but to explicitly tell her that the conviction was the reason they weren't moving forward. I heard from a lawyer acquaintance, not related to her case, just someone I knew, that assault convictions are notoriously hard to move past. They're not murders, so they don't get the most serious consequences, but they're serious enough that employers and landlords and other people considering whether to take a risk on you think twice. You're someone who has a history of violence, even if it was just once at a party over a relationship issue. The next substantial update I got was about her housing situation. She had apparently been looking for a new place, and multiple landlords had turned her down once the conviction came up during the background check process. She was stuck in her current housing situation, unable to move, unable to make changes because the conviction kept catching up with her in every application. A few months after I heard about the housing rejections, someone mentioned that she'd become pretty isolated. She wasn't going out much. She wasn't posting on social media. She'd basically withdrawn from the social circle she used to be a part of, which made sense. She's going to have to figure out how to move forward with that. She ghosted you when you were going through one of the worst weeks of your life, showed zero empathy, and clearly calculated that you'd be the easiest target when she later needed help. Literally showed you that she was never really your friend. Fast forward a couple of years, and she's facing assault charges, legal headaches, probation, community service, job doors slamming shut, social circles evaporating, landlords turning her away like she's radioactive, and all while you've been living your best life, gym tanned, socialized, therapy processed, and blissfully free of her entitled chaos. If this isn't textbook, karma is a slow but meticulous friend, I don't know what it is. Darkly satisfying doesn't even begin to cover it. We love to see it. What comes around goes around, I guess. What would you do if someone who betrayed your trust came back asking for a huge favor? Do you have a similar story to share? Let us know in the comments. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please, put your chair back where you found it.